Listen to this article. Its RB18 is understood to be one of the heaviest cars on the grid, and part of a raft of updates that are expected over the next few races is believed to include the arrival of lighter components. The very first hint of its weight-saving, albeit a minor one, appeared at the Australian Grand Prix, with a new front-wing design that featured both aerodynamic revision and, according to its official explanation to the FIA, some weight-saving tweaks too, as it reduces the overall volume and weight of the assembly. The changes to the front-wing end plate are quite obvious when compared with the previous specification, as not only has the leading and top edge been reprofiled, but so too has the dive plane. The more angular leading edge of the end plate has given way to a much more gradual curvature, which also significantly reduces the length of the upper edge, as the team looks to tweak the airflow's behavior ahead of the front tire. This is compounded by the arrival of the S-shaped dive plane, which sees the rear section in a higher position than the older specification, whilst also being mounted closer to the trailing edge. However, the shape means this final section of the dive plane is not pitched as aggressively as its predecessor. It's worth remembering that the teams are heavily restricted in what they can do with the design of the end plate and dive plane in order to limit how much outwash can be generated. It's also not the first time we've seen the S-shaped dive plane variant employed, with Alpine and Alfa Romeo also favoring the arrangement. Other Melbourne upgrades. McLaren MCL36 rear brake winglet comparison photo by, uncredited. McLaren settled on changes to its rear brake winglets and fence layout in Australia, which is a component that teams have far less design freedom with than they had in the past. But rather than taking away material, as has been the trend up until this point, the team increased the size of the end fence. These winglets are important when we consider not only the local flow distribution, but also how they can have an impact on the wake shed from the tire and the diffuser alongside, with even the most minimal of changes able to have a sizable effect. Alpine also investigated the impact of changes in this region of the car, trialing a new end fence layout during free practice, but it didn't appear to make its way onto the car for qualifying and the race. However, changes made to the outer floor strake did, with the team having already remodeled the design of the strake on several occasions during testing and the first few races in order to optimize its performance. Alpine A522 outer floor strake comparison photo by, uncredited. It's a change that appears to have an impact further down the floor edge too. Whilst it's clear that the boundary line of the strake has been shifted upward and rearward to create a more defined rear edge, the floor transition also seems to have more of a bulbous shape too. Like the barge boards that used to occupy this region of the car, the design of these strakes is going to provide a rich source of performance, not only in its own right, but also when allied to any optimizations made to the floor. Aston Martin AMR22 rear wing comparison photo by, uncredited. For the third race in a row, Aston Martin had a different rear wing at its disposal, as the team looked to strike the right balance between downforce and drag for the prevailing conditions and circuit characteristics. Notably, this rear wing has a more traditional, flat leading edge shape to the main plane, rather than the spoon-shaped designs that the regulations incite. This obviously characterizes the transition into the end plate, with a tighter radius required depending on the configuration at hand.